Hello everyone! This week's video is a mini tutorial mashup. Many of you have been requesting more tutorial videos, and a lot of times you want me to make tutorial videos on certain topics. However, the tutorial wouldn't be long enough to be a whole video, so that's why today we are trying something new. I'm making a bunch of mini tutorials and putting them in one video. So let's start the first mini tutorial. There were a lot of you asking for help with shoes or feet. I'm not an expert at drawing these, but I can show you a simple way that I go about drawing them. So when drawing feet, I break the foot up into 3 sections: the heel, arch, and toes. The heel is often a rounded triangle shape that kind of wraps around the back of the foot. The arch is tall at the top and goes down as it moves towards the toes. Then we have a rounded shape for the toes. Here's what the shapes look like in front view. The heel kind of wraps around like I mentioned, and the arch area comes up a lot right here. So when drawing shoes, I also break them up into the 3 shapes of the heel, arch, and toes. I'm going to be drawing a sort of Converse style shoe. This is the style of shoe I often draw in my webcomic, so I find it pretty easy to draw. Also for the heel this time, I have it kind of curve around and connect to the arch area because that is how the shoe kind of goes around the foot. After getting the general shape of the foot in place, I start adding more details. I draw the midsole, that's what Google is telling me it is called. I draw this around the foot. I used to make this area really thin, but it's actually pretty thick on many different styles of shoes, so I make it pretty thick. I add the detail around the heel. I then draw the part that wraps around with the laces. I'm trying to find the name for it, but I can't really find the name for it. The little flappy parts that go around the shoe. While I was doing this, I was looking at a picture of a shoe. So if you have a hard time drawing shoes, I definitely recommend looking at references of shoes while you're drawing them. It really helps. So now for the laces, I start by drawing circles for where the laces will go into the shoe. Then I draw a bunch of crisscrossing X shapes for the shoelaces. I keep them pretty simple. I don't go into major detail. A lot of times shoes are so small that you can just kind of draw a bunch of X's and then add the bow. That's what I do for my comic. If I'm drawing an illustration, I'll get more fancy with the shoelaces. And that is how I draw a shoe. You can apply these simple shapes to all kinds of different shoes. I do often slightly change the shape depending on the shoe. Like if I'm drawing a chunky boot, I'll make the shapes larger and more chunky. However, if I'm drawing a sleek shoe, I'll make the shapes smooth and sleek. So yeah. Okie dokie, so a quick way for drawing folds is to basically just remember the areas where they form. Folds most often form where the body can bend and twist. So here we have our little model. Folds like to form around the armpits, waist, and hips. Shirts will often kind of bunch up around the hips, but it depends on the shirt. If it's a really loose shirt, it won't really bunch up right there, but if it's tighter, it will. It kind of depends on how the shirt hits the hips. If the character is wearing long sleeves, we also get wrinkles around the elbow and wrists. For pants, folds like to form around the crotch, knees, and ankles. So if you want to quickly add wrinkles and folds, just add a few around these points. I'll do some quick little shirt drawings to demonstrate how I draw folds. I'll draw a loose shirt and a tight shirt. So for loose clothing, we get a lot more vertical lines because the fabric is draping off the body and it's kind of being pulled by gravity. I add folds around the waist and bottom of the shirt. I also add a few around the armpits and shoulders. Now for the tight shirts, we get more horizontal lines because the shirt is being pulled and stretched across the body. Once again, I add wrinkles to the waist, armpits, and I also add some pulling across the chest. And that is my quick way of drawing clothing folds. When I draw braids, I start by drawing a sort of zigzag line. Also, I didn't come up with this. I've seen many artists do this method for drawing braids. Once I have the zigzag line in place, I kind of continue the braid shape off of that line. Right now I'm drawing the part that connects to the head, so I extend the one shape and also add another strand of hair tucking into that shape, if that makes sense. The rest is pretty simple. I just draw curving lines that connect to the original zigzag line. And once I get to the bottom, I draw a little elastic and then the tips of the hair sticking out. After I got my rough shape in place, I did some cleanup. I try to make the braid feel less tight and a little looser and more hair-like. I add extra lines to make the hair feel more detailed. While drawing the hair, I try to keep in mind that the hair is wrapping around itself and try to express that it is doing that in the drawing. I'm not sure if that information helps at all. Anyways, here is the braid. Glasses can be really tricky to draw, especially in 3/4 view. So I'll talk about 3/4 view for the glasses. What I often do is I'll draw some lines going across the face where I want the top and bottom of the glasses to go. I make sure to have the box extend past the face because glasses kind of stick out from the face. I often use this method when I need to draw Brayson's glasses. Now that the box is in place, I'll draw the glasses inside the box. The glasses I was using as a reference were kind of a rounded, boxy shape. I roughly get the basic shape in place. When I draw glasses on characters traditionally, I still do all of these steps, but I draw very, very lightly so I can erase all of this later. Once I have the rough shape in place, I'll go over the sketch again with more detail. A lot of times when I draw glasses, I'll include the nose pads or nose pieces. I sometimes see artists or animes will choose to not include these, so you can also do that if you want to. I often include them just because I feel like it, I guess. But it depends. My characters Annabelle and Zeke have very stylized glasses because I don't feel like drawing detailed glasses all the time. Brayson gets actual glasses because he doesn't wear his glasses all the time, so I only have to draw them occasionally. Also, it can help to add a little edge on the inside of the frame to make the glasses look less flat and like they actually have a little bit of form to them. So if the character is turning to the left, I add them to the left inside of the frame, and if the character is turning to the right, I add them to the right inside of the frame. I add a little bit of color, and here we go. Here are the glasses. Before we move on to the next mini tutorial, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. If you like watching online tutorial videos, you'll love Skillshare because it is curated specifically for learning. They have thousands of classes for people of all skill levels on topics like illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and more. If you want to learn something new or dive deeper into your passion, Skillshare can help you do that. One class I recommend is Painting Light and Shadow, the Basics for Portraits and Characters by Gabrielle Bricky. In this class, you'll learn how to paint portraits with light. Gabrielle covers all sorts of lighting situations, so you'll be armed with the skills to confidently render a face in tons of different lighting scenarios. Skillshare is always launching new premium classes, and there are no ads, so you can stay focused on following wherever your creativity takes you. It's also less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. However, you can try Skillshare at no cost to you. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. So many of you were requesting I talk about male anatomy, so let's go over how I go about drawing male characters. Also, I'm drawing in Clip Studio Paint now because I felt like it would be easier. Plus, I needed to watch my baby brother in the family room. So before we look at how I draw males, let's first look at what I do when drawing females. When drawing girls, I try to keep things really soft and circular. A lot of times female characters have very defined waists and the hips are pretty prominent. I'll emphasize the curves in the body, especially in the torso and the legs, and I try to make everything look really soft. For male characters, I basically do the opposite. I make things boxier and less rounded. Also, the waist on male characters are often lower and not as defined. Many of you were wondering about the muscles of the arm, so here is how I often break it up. I draw this shape for the shoulder muscle, Then I have the bicep area, and then I connect it to the lower arm. If you want me to make a mini tutorial on how I break up the arm into different shapes, you can let me know. Also, my female characters are usually 6 to 7 heads tall, and my males are usually 7 to 8 heads tall. It kind of depends on their age and their height. So now I will do a quick drawing demo. I thought it'd be good to show you how I usually sketch the body when I draw. When I go into tutorial mode, I tend to stiffen up and not sketch how I usually do. So for male characters, what I've noticed is that the ribcage is often a lot more prominent and makes up a good portion of the torso compared to female characters. The hips are also pretty narrow in comparison. For male legs, I try not to make them too curvy, but I still want to define the muscles a little bit. For the knees, I tend to use kind of a diamond shape to sketch them in. I also noticed that the thighs tend to be the widest around the midway point. This is different from my female characters. For my female characters, they kind of just nicely taper towards the knee. But for the males, it seems to get wider in the middle, and then it kind of goes in towards the knee and also slightly in towards the hip. That's at least how I often draw it. Like I mentioned earlier, for the arms, I break them up into the shoulder muscle, bicep area, and lower arm. For my male characters in my webcomic, they are younger, so I often don't define the muscles as much. I make them a bit scrawnier, I guess. Is that the right word to use? Anyways, that's how I draw male characters. There were a lot of people asking that I talk about backgrounds, which kind of surprised me because I never feel like mine are very good. To be honest, my knowledge for drawing backgrounds is pretty low. When drawing backgrounds for my webcomic, I often import a 3D model, place it in the view I want, and then turn on the perspective rulers. The rulers are very helpful for drawing backgrounds because my lines snap to the ruler so that they are all in the same perspective. Now you might be thinking, wow, so the computer is doing all the work for you, huh? Yes, but also no. It does make things easier. However, my backgrounds in my webcomic have improved over time, even though I've always used the rulers. So the rulers aren't doing all the work for you. It's definitely still very good to have a knowledge of backgrounds and how they work, because you can make a lot better backgrounds if you actually know what you're doing. Anyways, I'll now share with you my basic knowledge of perspective and backgrounds. Many of us have seen one-point perspective. We have a line that is called the horizon line, and then we have the point that's called the vanishing point. The horizon line is basically the eye level of the viewer. So if something is above the line, we can see the underside, and if something is below it, we can see the upper side. Many of the lines that we draw will head back to this point unless they are completely horizontal or vertical. Also, as objects get closer to the vanishing point, they get smaller and smaller. So let's try to apply this info to a quick sketch with a character. I'll quickly draw in a character that I randomly decided is an elf for some reason. I feel like our viewpoint is about here, so I'll add the vanishing point and the horizon line. Now I will make a perspective grid by making a bunch of lines going towards the point and a bunch of horizontal lines going across the canvas. As I'm making these horizontal lines, I make them get further spaced apart as they come towards us because, like I mentioned, as things get closer to the horizon line, they get smaller and closer together. So to help me get a sense of depth, I make the horizontal lines get further and further apart as they get closer to us. I find grids to be really helpful when I want to get an understanding of the depth in the picture. It helps me picture it a lot easier. Even though we are working with one-point perspective, we don't have to make everything go directly back to the vanishing point. I'm going to draw a curving path that will get obscured by some bushes and trees. Also, I've decided the character is in a forest. When I draw backgrounds, I ask myself this question: what is in the foreground, midground, and background? To make my backgrounds more interesting, I often add stuff into the foreground. This helps give a sense of depth because there is something that is really close to the viewer. The character and the area behind the character is kind of the midground. Here I will add more bushes and trees. Also, for drawing trees, you can pretty much draw whatever shape you like. Just make sure the branches get thinner and thinner. Don't have a thick branch coming off of a thinner branch, because then it doesn't look right. So that's how I draw trees. And then we have the background. I'm keeping it simple with more trees and bushes. Also, you can help backgrounds feel interesting by giving contrast. So for this sketch, the foreground stuff is dark and everything gets lighter as it moves into the background. You can also do the opposite of making stuff in the foreground lighter and the stuff in the background darker. This can also help provide a sense of depth. So yeah, that is some of my basic knowledge about backgrounds. So those are all of the mini tutorials we have for this video. I hope you enjoyed them and that they helped you a little. If you would like to see me do this again, please let me know and give this video a thumbs up and leave your mini tutorial requests in the comments. Also, thank you all so much to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon for helping support this channel. Thank you so much for being a part of the Patreon community. I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!